Wrestle Magic Pod, official sponsors of British Empire Wrestling.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you understand that here at Wrestle Magic, we've been doing a lot of things. We have our plates very full. That I know that Maverick and Scully are doing their best to dig up and do the best interviews that they can. These guys are just finding like everybody from overseas, England, Japan, Korea, you name it, they have it. It's pretty awesome. It's really awesome that we have all this going on, and they're really pioneering and spearheading all the international product as well as the domestic product too. So we have all that, but today, my co-host Sean and I are going to talk more about WrestleManias and the hangovers, the good, the bad, the ugly. It's a very disgusting thing to say because everybody thinks about WrestleMania. They think about it's the best thing, the pageantry, the biggest thing in the world. WrestleMania. I do not like the fact that they honestly use the granddaddy of them all. And I've spoken about this before because honestly, that was the Great American Bash. That was that slogan, and that was created by, I believe, Dusty Rhodes. So with that being said, I believe that people need to pay homage to the true slogans and the true owners of true trademarks and things like that. But I guess that's why the WWE is so great about buying out different companies, territories, slogans, superstars, not wrestlers, and everybody else that they can kind of manipulate the rights to. So that's not what this is about. It's really about the fact that as we progress and get further on into this WWE WrestleMania situation, that pageantry is going to drop off a little bit. It's going to pick up also. It's going to be a little weird. But the whole thing with Liberace and the Rockettes and things like that, it doesn't really connect with everybody who's supposed to be a real fan. And the thing about being a real fan is the fact that you want to see wrestling. You don't want to see a washed up old man dancing. You don't want to see an actor in the ring. And a lot of this gets more and more prevalent, drops off, becomes prevalent again. And we have to deal with that as the fan, as the enthusiast, as everybody else who's in this. We all have to deal with this. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I bring on my favorite co-host, and he's not my favorite just because he's the only co-host who will work with me, but I bring on Sean.
I might be. If we haven't tried that too much, have we? Maybe I am the only one.
Well, we are the editorial team, whereas like Scully and Maverick are basically the badasses of doing everything with interviews and everything else. And they do carry this program and the show quite a bit as far as what they do in negotiating and figuring out every interview to do. But first of all, how are you, Sean?
I'm doing pretty good. Our other cat, Bix, I think, has discovered Mr. Hogan back here.
Okay. That's pretty awesome.
What's that?
That's pretty
okay.
awesome. Now, what I would like to ask you, sir, is that we left off at WrestleMania 5.
Yes, the mega powers have exploded. The explosion has happened. And here we are a year later in Toronto, Canada. Moose in the background, if you can hear him there. Hello. Toronto, Canada for WrestleMania 6. Title versus title, champion versus champion. The famous Hogan Warrior GIF. Some people will know exactly what I'm talking about just by saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want to run down the card a little bit, please, sir, and let's talk about the highs and definitely the lows.
We're starting to get into some of the WrestleManias where it took a lot of kind of going back and looking at over the years, because this was definitely when I was still pretty young and didn't know a lot about it at the time. Yes, Moose, I hear you. But we're going to start. We don't include the dark match, I guess, but the actual first televised match was Rick Martel defeating Koko Beware by submission in 5.5 minutes. How about that?
The old Boston Crab, I believe.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably not a bad match. I think it was two good workers going out and just kind of warming the crowd. That's what I
But,
would put it. I'm not a person to do stars or 1 out of 10. Like every once in a while, I'll say, okay, that was that great. But
we don't need to put stars on a match like that. No offense to Mr. Martel or Mr. Ware or Frankie for that matter. But, opening match on WrestleMania 6, it was fine.
Yeah, it served its purpose. I would believe that, the
And
laundry was done. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's fold it.
going for the second match, we're starting to get into some of the tactics that would be used later on in WrestleMania days with a early championship match, a tag team title match between Demolition and the Colossal Connection, of course, Andre the Giant. And he wasn't King Haku at the time, I imagine, just Haku.
He was just Haku, yes.
Just Haku, not King Haku. King Haku was always a weird one for me, to be honest with you, as far as gimmicks go.
That was a strange one where they moved the gimmick just because the fact that Harley Race had gotten injured. Then they had a match, and I think Harley just wanted to retire and get out. And he was tired of WWE politics and stuff like that. But whatever.
Call me crazy, Macho took the Macho King mantle up after winning King of the Ring in 80, whatever it was. I don't believe, did Harley Race, that wasn't because of was it because of the King of the Ring as well?
Yes, but it wasn't.
Okay.
As far as I know, it was never televised. Like,
Harley could just be the king, that's fine.
Well, I was blessed, like I said, a long time ago with having cable before a lot of people, but I never heard about King of the Ring being on pay-per-view. This is where it gets interesting because Bret Hart was the King of the Ring. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. In a very awkward crowning ceremony, if I remember correctly. I think Lawler beat him up, cracked his back with something, the chair, maybe the throne.
You go, Jerry, go.
God, I think Bret complained about that years later, saying that he really hurt him pretty good with that.
To me, I remember the King of the Ring not being televised, not being advertised. That's a bigger thing, the advertisement. I think it was like a Madison Square Garden only event or something like that. So all of a sudden one day Haku comes out on Saturday Morning Wrestling because at that time Raw was still prime time, blah, 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 blah. The point is we didn't know how that switched hands. Then you find out later by reading dirt mags and everything else, they had a match. They were two toughest legit guys in the business, minus Andre and stuff like that. So it is what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Colossal Connection versus Demolition. Great, solid match as far as Demolition carrying this and Haku carrying this.
Yeah, I mean, Andre was getting on pretty, I think he probably wouldn't last another year or two, right? Well, he died in 93, I guess, so definitely not.
Yeah, his passing was not that far after.
No.
My thing with that was the fact that I think they just wanted to put a belt on him.
Yeah.
Besides that, goofy 1 second,
being the one guy who never ever needed a title to be legitimate in any way, but we all know that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're making a great case, and a great story to tell is the fact that this was a swan song.
Yep.
So, and who better to put it on than Demolition? I love the Road Warriors. They couldn't have done it. Demolition was the perfect people. Bill Eadie as Axe was part of the Machines. He was the mass superstar. He'd been in wrestling, and he had been a great friend of Andre the Giant for a long time. So it made sense for him to be kind of the guy that's helping call the moves. Barry Darsow, a great hand. Barry Darsow is an unsung tag team hero. So, Axe and Smash, and then Haku.
Pretty young still.
Yeah, I mean, he was a stud. He's at his age now, he's still a stud, but he was a young stud. So it's like, okay, I'll carry this match. I'll tag him when I need to. And then the kick in the face, Andre's done. That's the way it is. They split off. Andre goes semi into the sunset, but we'll get into that later. Honestly, this match didn't bother me because in retrospect, at the time, I didn't like it. But looking at it now, it makes a lot more sense. And I think that was a great way to say Andre's tired. Andre wants to go home.
And well, he should, because a great career all the way through. I mean, the biggest attraction wrestling ever had, without a doubt. I mean, you make a case for Hogan as far as drawing power, but I think you can make a distinction between him and an attraction that Andre was everywhere he went. And like some people have pointed out over the years, that's one thing against, say, the Big Show or Paul White over the years, being too overexposed on TV every week for years and years and years. It wasn't as special as getting to kind of maybe one time in your life going down to Louisville Gardens, for example, and seeing Andre. That would have been just legendary in your mind for the rest of your life. You would have never kind of seen anything else like that.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's strange, like how when I first started watching wrestling, he was a special attraction. They kept him off TV. And so I saw him, and then I had to wait a year to see him again. And I was just like, Andre, and now you don't care about things like that. So that special attraction feel was great. And then the dying off of letting him go gracefully. And they really didn't let him go gracefully, because that whole end with Earthquake was just bad.
Yeah.
But it comes down to the fact that should have been it. That should have been a swan song.
Well, speaking of Mr. Quake, he is up next. Escorted to the ring by Jimmy Hart, defeating Hercules by pinfall in 4 minutes 52. Earthquake, one of my personal sort of underrated. Thank you, Moose. One of my personal favorites, and a great big guy wrestler for sure. Obviously a talented sumo wrestler from Japan for years and years. Always probably looked about 20 years older than he was at any given time. And sadly, I don't think did he barely make it out of his 40s, I believe. It really, that was a great Dark Side of the Ring episode, though, to really kind of get a little bit more of a personal look at at John Tenta, who by all accounts was a wonderful guy. Everybody liked him, which, credit him for being such a good, kind of nasty character for so many years. He was a real underrated great wrestler of all time, I think. Well,
John Tenta, they was it, I think, bladder cancer that killed him.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just sad because, like you said, nobody had an ill word to say about him. But they said he was a scary son of a gun. And they said he was the only guy that they thought would give Andre a run for his money. And they said he might have been able to take Andre, which...
And maybe one of the best debuts I can ever remember watching it all. The
push-ups.
The push-ups, getting him out of the crowd. This big guy, sitting there in the crowd, just, with his arms up like that. Who, me? You want me to come down? And awesome. I went back and watched that several years ago, and I was beside myself laughing and just... in awe of how actually good doing something like that was. It would probably be considered so cheesy nowadays. Of course, nowadays it's more focused on just the straight up celebrity. Let's bring this guy in for a celebrity rather than getting this guy who's a legit monster. Coming out is 6'7", coming out of the crowd like he was just there with his family or whatever.
So I gotta say, I love the fact that when he first debuted, he was the Canadian Earthquake.
Oh, yeah.
And his whole thing was he had to shimmy side to side like he was on an earthquake all the time. Vince, connect with human beings, not with 4-year-olds. But Vince is out of it. So anyway, the match, I honestly, when I was a kid, I picked Hercules going over in this one because usually it was the muscular guy who went over to the big large guy. And honestly, his build was really not that big at that time. At least I don't remember being that big in my market. So I figured Hercules was going to go over. Then when I found out he squashed Hercules, I was like, okay, they're doing something with this guy. So
yeah, well, they were making him to be the next big nemesis for Hogan, I believe. Or had that already happened? I'm mixing up my timeline here.
No, you're actually right. He was on the build. And I think his debut was against Warrior when he sat on his back. Yeah. So I think it was supposed to be Warrior's build, but the Warrior. So
I don't know how much Tenta could have done with Warrior, in all honesty. So, probably best that was the case. As good as Tenta was, but okay, moving on. Yeah, moving on. Thank you. We go to a match that probably should have ended differently, but Brutus Beefcake defeating somehow Mr. Perfect with the great Lanny Poffo as the genius in his corner, which I always loved seeing Lanny. Even if he was just talking into the microphone, he was really good in WWF during that time with that shtick, with that gimmick.
So to me, this is a knuckle biter, and not in a good way. Like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's like they really did this.
Well, Beefers was the good guy, I guess, at that time, and you want to see a guy like Perfect. This wasn't his first loss, I believe, but maybe it was.
This was makeup for him not beating Honky Tonk Man when he got in the Paracel accident. This was supposed to be his WrestleMania moment that nobody.
Yeah, go over on Kurt Hennig, one of the best pure technical wrestlers that's ever existed.
This is probably the worst match on the card as far as delivery.
Expectation delivery, yeah.
Yeah, it if you look at pure talent and politics, this is the worst match on the card.
Yeah, I mean, I'd watch Perfect and Genius, Lanny all day long, just for the wrestling, and then Lanny with his thing going on. Hilarious. The poems, throwing the frisbees out.
Oh, yes.
I loved it, but that was that match. 8 minutes almost, or 7:48 it looks like. Say hi, Moose. What's up?
Moosey!
All right, next, an infamous build, or Roddy Piper, half black, half white. Roddy Piper versus Bad News Brown. I love Roddy Piper to death. Obviously one of the greats, but not the most shining moment of his career, let's be honest. Which he got ribbed for, apparently, because apparently the paint did not wash out easily at all.
So I've heard the stories that basically he did not know that the paint would not wash off. So he wrestles the match, goes out, goes with the boys, goes to the hotels, whatever he has to do.
And he's half black for the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
He looked like, I don't know if you remember the old Star Trek show. I mean, everybody remembers it, I guess. But there's an aliens, a race of aliens that were the same, straight down the middle, half black, half white. And that's literally what he was essentially doing.
It is something. It was like playing the game Othello, but it was human. And it definitely, folks, it would not stand up today. Back in the day, even we were just like, I don't know how I feel about this. And then the stories I've heard, and I don't know if it's all true or not, because obviously I wasn't there.
That they didn't like each other.
That Bad News didn't know he was going to do it.
No, I've heard that too, yeah.
Oh my God. And so you have a guy that got a bronze medal in the Olympics for judo, and you're half black, and oh no. And
you got a guy that got a gold medal in life for character work.
And promos,
which this was maybe one of probably the low point of his well-known career, as far as somebody who was that good at everything else he kind of touched, rather regarding character work. That was a bad moment.
It definitely was not the shining star. And as far as like Bad News goes, I was always a huge fan of Bad News Brown, and his in-ring work was great. And of course, he worked in Calgary with all the Hearts and everything else. And so with what I see with everything that he's done in his career, I thought this was going to be like a really big blow-up match. And then when Piper came out like that, and I love Piper too, like I said, I was just like, this is kind of weird.
Bad News was in kind of a weird spot. I think he probably, at that time for WWF, was a little too black, for lack of a better word, which sucks. Because otherwise, he was I thought a pretty good guy to have on a roster. Never going to be world champion or anything like that, but was a really pretty decent worker and had some, he made a good heel, good tough guy, legitimately, like you're like, well, this guy might even be a bit rotund build, but he was a legitimate tough guy, and you can really understand that and sense that through the way that he carried himself.
Oh God, I miss Bad News.
Yeah,
I wish his career would have been a lot
made it
longer.
in the Hall of Fame this year, I believe.
I know, but just looking back at what he did in the ring, his rivalry with Bret Hart, priceless. That was probably the highlight of what he did on a national stage. But if you look at his old matches at Calgary and everything he did with all the Stampede guys, way better.
All right, and next, you mentioned Bret Hart, and that's who we got coming up next in a total squash, the Hart Foundation. Bret and Jim Neidhart defeating the Bolsheviks, Nikolai Volkov and Boris Zhukov, who were great, territory tag team, territory villains for years. Was Zhukov preceded by Khrushchev?
No, actually, Khrushchev was NWA. He was part of the Koloff family. So Khrushchev, was Barry Darsow. Yeah,
you're yeah.
The
Volkov,
fact is,
Koloff.
This you could see on any Saturday morning.
Yeah,
televised.
19 seconds.
This did not deserve to be on WrestleMania. So this might supersede everything as probably the worst match because it didn't make sense and it had no business being on a WrestleMania.
So we'll go on and go by it already. We've already spent more time talking about it than the match lasted. So next up, the Barbarian defeating Tito Santana in a singles match. It was a match.
Yeah,
it was fine.
Once again, way too high up the card to actually make sense.
Yeah.
So.
Next up, a little bit more star power. You had the mixed tag team match. Dusty Rhodes and Sweet Sapphire, baby, with Miss Elizabeth in their corner defeating the Macho King and Queen Sherry. Who knew, over the years that Macho could have such a great run with Miss Elizabeth and then also have a much more brief, obviously, but still great run with one of my goats. I think we've talked about on this podcast before, Sherry Martel.
All right. I'm just going to lay it out to you right now. Sapphire couldn't wrestle.
No.
All she do a booty bump.
No,
Dusty
she could probably drive a school bus, I guess, or work in the cafeteria. Maybe. I'm sure she was a lovely woman. I have no idea about that, but I've got nothing bad to say about her as a person. But she was not a wrestler.
I'm gonna say that Macho and Sherry were probably not quite straight level when they were wrestling this match. So what was the payoff in this? A whole lot of nothing.
For almost 8 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, eight minutes of you walk down to the refrigerator and you want a glass of orange juice and you have to settle for lukewarm water.
And you're saying that about Dusty and Macho Man, two of the greatest to ever do it, but just goes to show even the best
6 years.
Yeah, but even the best have stinkers every now and again. That's going to happen.
All right. So
next,
what's our next soup du jour?
Another tag team match. The Orient Express, Sato and Pat Tanaka, with Mr. Fuji defeating the Rockers, Marty and Sean. I again assume pretty shortly before their split.
Yeah, it was. Well, the Orient Express was getting a small push, and of course it was Saito before.
But why this went on before the tag team title match is kind of, again, maybe that newer booking kind of makes sense too with a big early match, but still, I don't get it.
Not a whole lot made sense at this point, to be honest with you. And Saito, at this point, I think he wrestled after they put Paul Diamond on the mask as Kato. I think that Saito wrestled like one more as a 3-man match or a 6-man match, whatever you want to call it. And aside from that, the Rockers were putting over everybody back then. They were the human canvasbacks. So it was what it was expected, and it was kind of another snack break match.
Yeah. And we've got another one after that too. Unfortunately, Jim Duggan defeating Dino Bravo in about 4:15.
Shouldn't have been on the card.
No. So we'll go on. After that, though, one of the best from a guy that was really well known for his promos and very good at them, Jake Roberts, going against Ted DiBiase. Obviously, we all remember the famous "wallowing in the muck of avarice" promo from Jake Roberts, which is just, I mean, the guy was a wordsmith.
All right, so Jake is Jake, Ted is Ted. Like I said, this is another one.
It was a fine match.
If you were around it 3 years, it would have stole the show.
Yeah. It was the build. It was the build, and the promo was
exactly
what made it.
That was the science behind the match. That they could have taken match of the night, had it come out 3 years earlier, and let them say whatever they want to say in those characters. Period. No one could have touched it. Promise you that.
Yeah. And I still go back and watch that promo every now and again, just because it's so good. I think Mean Gene, all he had to say after Jake walked off, what did he say? Longfellow couldn't have said it better. Okay. All right. So that was for the $1 Million Championship, by the way, in case anybody really wanted to get that in there. It probably should have been Jake go over, let's be honest. But I guess, let the bad guy get one every now and again. After that, Mr. Big Boss Man and Akeem, the former Twin Towers, right?
Yeah.
A minute 50. Both fine workers, love Boss Man, but again, why is it on this card?
2 years prior, it could have sold something. As Akeem, it doesn't work. As One Man Gang, it could have worked, but garbage. Yeah. It was, that it might take, it probably takes it for the turd, and the one that just didn't work.
And I'm afraid it doesn't get much better with this penultimate match before the main event. Rick Rude defeating Jimmy Snuka in just under 4 minutes.
Makes no sense.
A lot of this going on this card, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's a lot of, let's pay him. But that's great. Everybody wants to get paid. However, if they show up in the audience and you see him for a couple of minutes, they're going to make the same amount of money as if they were in that ring. Now, I know people say I'm wrong, but if you think about it in this sense, kind of makes sense. It kind of does track and kind of makes a little bit of forethought, like, okay, you could have so-and-so sitting in the front row and you've seen them 4 times in one broadcast, and that's 6 minutes worth of time, but yet they only wrestled a minute 30 if they actually had a match. I don't know. This was throwing noodles at the wall and hoping something would stick desperately. But Ravishing Rick, love the guy. Snuka, I mean, even his age at that point, I think he was already into his 40s. Guy was ripped. I do not endorse what he did in his life. We don't know because there was never a true trial, but
either way.
Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, we here at the Wrestle Magic Pod are not going to talk about because we can't speculate because we don't know the true facts and no one's ever proven anything.
And overall, just kind of a meh match, which does lead us into our main event, which, to be honest with you, for years, I never liked. Until fairly recently, I'd gone back and watched it, and I thought, this is actually a pretty good match for what it is and what it was supposed to be. Ultimate Warrior, the IC champion, defeating Hulk Hogan, the WWF champion, in 22 minutes in what ended up being mostly, strength, test of strength. But it works. It worked for what these two guys were doing at the time. And again, I didn't like it for the longest time, but honestly, it kind of grew on me the last time or two I watched it. And I thought, for what it is and who's involved, it's not a bad match.
Okay, here's my things with it. This is like Andre Hogan. It was the story.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the
great build. Amazing build.
The amazing clinic that they put on that ring. I mean, I thought it was like Kurt Angle versus Eddie Guerrero. No, I never thought that. But what I did think is that the fact that the story was there,
You
and
take
everybody,
that back.
yeah, everybody at my high school at that point, I think it was in ninth grade, they were talking about who do you think is going to win. And everybody's Hogan, 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 Hogan. And I was just like, well, I want Warrior to win. Like,
I was still too young for that, but I'm sure everybody thought Hogan was going to win this match.
I don't know anybody who bet against it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think everybody was also betting on like a huge heel turn, but it just didn't happen. So that's that. That was it. Why I say this is the match of the show, honestly, is because
I think
of
it
the
is.
story.
Yeah. I mean, none of these matches
like
were particularly great. Let's be honest.
No.
But it was, for what it was, a good match and a good build. So I think it has to be the WrestleMania moment for this one.
That makes the most sense. That was an actual WrestleMania moment. And who didn't want to see Hogan lose at WrestleMania?
Yeah.
Because I know I did. I really did. At that point, Hulkamania was dead. It was just floating.
Well,
and we needed something better. So
enjoy it while it lasts, because the next year, March 24th, my birthday, 1991, not 19, I was a few years older already, but in LA at the Sports Arena, which I believe was supposed to be maybe somewhere bigger, the Coliseum or something, but they had to move it to the Sports Arena due to lack of interest.
Oh, yes.
The WrestleMania, getting my Roman numerals wrong here, 7, featuring yet another good build, not quite the last two, because the last two builds were great. And they kind of tried it again, went to that well for this main event. More mixed results, I'd say.
Okay. Well, 7 as far as it goes. So we have what? Slaughter and yeah. So
Hogan and Slaughter with General Adnan in his corner.
No,
Sergeant Slaughter being the betrayer of the United States after so many years. And
no, what I'm trying to remember, and I think I have this right, is the fact that if I'm not wrong, there were so many death threats against Slaughter performing. That's why they moved to a smaller venue. Now, is that right?
I think that's why they said that. I think.
Okay.
In reality, it was lack of interest or ticket sales and whatnot, but that made it good, which is very well true, probably, that he did receive a lot of death threats at the time and whatnot. You know, there was a war on. Come on. How could Sergeant Slaughter turn us back on the United States? But I think that made for a good scapegoat reason.
You know, I listened to a really interesting interview with Sergeant Slaughter, and he said at one point he had texted Vince McMahon, didn't text. He called him and he said, you know, that's really awesome.
91, yeah.
You're doing really great with this and that. And Hogan, he's like, well, let me know when your Hasbro deal runs out so we could use you. He's like, it's been out for like 6 or 7 months. He's like, great, we're going to work you and Hogan. He goes, great, how you going to turn Hogan heel?
Well,
and, yeah, just like that.
We have an idea.
Yeah. And like Vince had already thought about that fast, just like it's a perfect thing. Now, I also think, and in a perfect world, had the Hasbro thing never happened, would you have Hulk Hogan as big as he is? Or would Slaughter have been bigger than him? I remember 84, prior to the big territory expansion, they were doing like Coca-Cola commercials with Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah.
So that's national attention. And all of a sudden, he signs the Hasbro deal. He's booted out because the LJN deal with WWF prior to WrestleMania 1. Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. Let's go into this card.
All right. And first match of that one is going to be a tag team. The Rockers, Sean and Marty once again. So not quite at their demise, defeating the Barbarian and Haku, who I grew up knowing from WCW. The Barbarian and Ming at the time.
Yes. Faces of Fear.
Yeah, exactly. in a perfectly fine tag team match.
Hey, are you sure it wasn't the Warlord?
It was a Barbarian.
No. I mean Barbarian, not Haku, but Barbarian Warlord, not Barbarian and Haku.
He was definitely the Barbarian in WCW, and he's listed as such here as well.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but he was definitely Barbarian in WCW when I was a kid.
No, I was talking about the Haku character maybe being actually the Warlord. If it was,
Oh, no. I think
okay,
he was not King Haku, just Haku.
okay, okay.
Just Haku.
Well,
But
that's kind of a surprise. Like the Rockers on their best day with shotguns couldn't destroy those guys. I just, if those guys were an iron lung each apiece and had gangrene of the toes, there's still no way the Rockers would defeat them in a fight.
no,
But
definitely not.
what it was is it sold tickets and they got the little kids excited. That's what they wanted to do at the time. So I agree with it. You had to do what you had to do. And those guys, the powers of pain, whatever, they had to go on to greener pastures. So as you were saying.
Yep. Next up, a match between the Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, defeating Dino Bravo in a whatever singles match. Of course, Kerry was pretty much wasted by the time he got to WWF. Sadly, not to pile on the tragedy that the Von Erich family's gone through, but he had one foot at the time. I believe he had already had his amputation. Yeah. He was not. Texas Tornado is not Kerry Von Erich anymore.
No.
Sadly. After that, the British Bulldog starting to break away from the tag team, beating the Warlord and Slick, which went 8 minutes. So it's any British Bulldog match that's not against that's not a tag team or not against Bret Hart that goes 8 minutes is playing with fire. A great look and classic wrestler, but not all there.
That was a bland match. It was definitely a kick punch body slam kind of match.
But he would win the next year at SummerSlam against Bret. So that was his moment in the sun, moment in the clouds in England.
It was the start of the Ascension. That's why I was asking you earlier about the Powers of Pain versus the Faces of Fear, who opened up the match, because I thought it should have been the Powers of Pain and it would have been the Warlord. That's why I was kind of confused, which makes this all a lot more sense. And now I feel stupid. But getting back to it, it's a filler match to start the push. It served its purpose. I like it. I think that I would have built up to the Warlord. I would have put a few more smaller guys in there until you got a brick. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Moving on, a fun match. I remember watching this actually not too long ago. I think it was on a live stream I had on. The Nasty Boys, Sags and Knobs, defeating the Hart Foundation by pinfall for the Tag Team Championship. Fun match. I always liked the Nasty Boys.
Here's my thing. I never liked the Nasty Boys, and now I do, and I'll tell you why. There's no team, no tag team ever that could garner as much heat as the Nasty Boys. I mean, honestly, you tell me a team that could get as much heat and as much hate as the Nasty Boys. I can't.
They turned it around for a while later in the career to being sort of, well-liked. They always had that kind of edge. They're the Nasty Boys, after all. They can't go out there and be white meat baby faces, but people liked them after a while.
I mean, they're not exactly lookers. But what they had was the ability to say, we're going to tell a story in the ring. Now, I'm not going to kiss their booties and say that they were the greatest ever. I'm not going to do that. Jerry
Sags was an underrated worker, I think. Jerry Sags was a pretty good worker. Knobs was Hogan's friend.
Yeah. But coming down to it, what I have to say about this team is that everybody remembers the Nasty Boys.
Great theme song, too.
I mean, what can you say?
Tailor-made for the 90s. Tailor-made for the early 90s.
They actually were. And so, honestly, all that heat that they got, all that heat for beating the Hart Foundation.
Yeah.
Bret Hart, Mr. Pretty Boy. Oh, yeah. It
was a good match, too. It was fun.
That match is probably number 2.
Well, next up is another fun match. Maybe not quite as good, but they made it work pretty well. The blindfold match between Jake Roberts and Rick Martel. Martel beating or blinding Jake Roberts with his atomizer. I forget what did they call it? Arrogance. I was gonna say excellence. Yeah, arrogance. Blindfold match, obviously not been done a whole lot, especially not in the WWF, WWE ranks. I believe Triple H and D'Lo Brown had a pretty fun one years later as well. It's a great moment where Triple H has got D'Lo backed into a corner and D'Lo slips away from him, and Triple H is still pointing at him and giving him the business while nobody's there. Very fun.
It was very goofy, like watching the match when I was a kid. I think we bootlegged it off somebody's like free for view, and just like the like the mummy. It looked like two mummies blindfolded.
Well, Jake was just pointing the whole time. He's waiting for the crowd to like tell me where Martel's at, and I'll go get him.
It is what it is. It was just a serviceable match. I think the hype outdid the match. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Another good build. WWF's never been anything if not good at build. So,
well, my favorite part of the build on that was the fact that Jake had done a couple of previews after he'd been sprayed with the arrogance, and they gave him a contact lens, and one eye was like completely white, and it was just like.
I like that, commitment to the bit. So,
it was great. It was absolutely great. I loved it.
Next up is a monumental moment in. A monumental moment in WrestleMania history, the debut of The Undertaker, his first match at WrestleMania against and defeating, of course, Jimmy Snuka. Yeah. I mean, not the best match or anything. It took a while for Undertaker's matches to even get good, to be honest with you, at WrestleMania, but it was the first one, so it has to be, you have to kind of put a tent pole there for that alone.
What I have to say is, first of all, I watched him as Mean Mark Callis and Master Payne before that. And he was perennially a mid-carder. Although I recognized he had talent, I always thought he was just a mid-carder. So when he was getting this mega push, I was like, why are they doing that for him? He's just a mid-carder. Of course, I was like 16.
Great gimmick. Yeah, that's what the gimmick... When Vince was able to do that, even something as cheesy at this time, the Undertaker who also wrestles for some reason, the Garbage Man who also wrestles for some reason, well, it worked maybe based on length more than anything. If the Undertaker gimmick didn't quite last as long as it did, maybe he wouldn't have that aura that he does.
Well, like I said, I was 16 and I was used to seeing him in WCW's Mean Mark or USWA as,
Texas
Master
Red.
Payne. I did not realize how talented he was at that point. Okay. So I want to see Snuka go over. I did. That's then. Now I realize why they did it now, because, oh my God, you're setting the stones in a certain path so that the company wouldn't fall underwater. I mean, it was so perfect. And I got to say, I love everything that Taker has done. Looking back and realizing when I wasn't a Taker fan and thinking he was just overpushed, he really is the best big guy ever. So in the match, quick, short, to the point.
Yep, 420, exactly.
I know, isn't that weird?
And Snuka taking the tombstone pile driver, which, good on a guy like at his age for wanting to put that move over, because over the years it built up and as a devastating move that would be protected for, basically his entire career. So
I think at one point, I think Snuka was mid 40s at that point. Yeah. Definitely. So, good on him. For what it was, solid match. And it was the debut of the streak.
Yeah. Next up is probably the best match on the card. Everything surrounding it. The Ultimate Warrior defeating Randy Savage. His blow off with Sherry Martel turning on him at the end. With Miss Elizabeth returning from the crowd to discard Sherry and reunite with the Macho Man. This awesome moment, after more than a year, I guess, that they had been, separated at that point. Not in real life, maybe. I'm not sure about their personal business, but as far as on TV and all that. But it was a good match, and everything kind of around it coalesced really nicely. And I think probably ended up being the best. This is the WrestleMania moment for this particular WrestleMania for me.
Well, I can't disagree, and I'm glad they put a bow tie on it and just pushed it out.
Oh, and a career-ending match. I almost forgot to mention that. It was a career-ending match for Randy Savage.
For how long? And, yeah.
Well, Vince wanted him. He didn't want him to keep on, which I think was one of the main reasons he ended up, going to WCW. Obviously, probably Hogan had something to do with that too, or trying to escape Hogan, and then Hogan eventually joining him there. Poor Randy.
It was a couple of years after that, but it was
It was a good commentator too. He went on to be a commentator. But what's Vince thinking? Like, Randy's done. Put him on the desk, and we don't want him wrestling anymore.
But as much as I liked Randy back in the day, I couldn't handle 2 hours of Raw with Randy on commentary. Oh yeah, that's an elbow drop. I used to do a very savage one from the top. You know what happened to Miss Elizabeth once? No, we don't care. Okay, you just call what's in the ring, and I don't want to hear it. And that. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, geez, what? No, I don't want that. So, yeah, it was a moment. It was definitely a moment.
Yeah. After that. Another tag team match. Demolition loses to Tenryu and Koji Kitao in a fine enough match for what it was, even though Demolition lost.
I have nothing to say except for this is the way to try to reach into Japan and say, okay, we'll take two of our tops that now have not necessarily jumped the shark, but they're getting very close.
Demolition had jumped the shark at that point too, because this was when Crush had replaced Crusher.
Crusher, yeah. But LOD hadn't come in. No, Road Warriors had not come in yet. So the point on this one, yeah.
Just wait, they have actually.
Oh, that's true. Okay, sorry. But the point is, they hadn't had that show off yet. So this whole thing was cooling off Demolition.
Yeah. I mean, I got to imagine Edie was starting to get up there in age at this point.
Oh, gosh, yeah. But he was still one hell of a performer at that age. Yeah. I mean, I would take him at that age over some young – I wouldn't say a lot of youngsters now, but I'd take that mind and that psychology and the way he could tell a story. Not necessarily the moveset. But what he had up there, God, I mean, if he's alive, I wish he was a booker. I would love to have him as booker.
He's definitely still alive. I know that.
I think he is, but like I said, in a tag team division, I would take that man number one as my booker. But getting back to it, it was to try to expand and try to make foreign ties in Japan without it being All Japan or New Japan, who wanted nothing to do with Vince because they knew he was a snake. So they're going, okay, well, we'll try this upstart. And I can't remember. I think it was either Big Japan or it had a 3-letter word. It was like BJW or WJW, something like that. But like World Japan Wrestling, whatever. But they were big stars from the other companies, and that's what that was all about. And that fizzled. So I think the next thing they did was they had a match in Japan with Tenryu, with Hogan against the Road Warriors. And the Road Warriors beat them by pinfall.
Yeah,
which is awesome. But anyway, as you were saying.
Yep. Next up, IC title match. Big Boss Man, Andre in his corner defeating Mr. Perfect, who had Bobby Heenan in his corner by DQ, so no change of title. But I believe this was the match that Andre got to smack Bobby Heenan around for a bit afterwards.
I liked it. I'm not going to lie. There was part of me that wanted the Boss Man to win, for one. Just because at that point, Ray Traylor was in the best shape of his career. He really was. And the way he could do those slides out of the ring, do the punch, everything. He had his own moveset that was unique to him. And he learned from a good learning tree. And I think that minus when he went back to WCW, became the boss and all that stuff. He really was on top of his game. He really was in a great place, I think, mentally, physically, and storytelling wise. I think he was at the top of this game. So I thought, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig had nothing to lose by dropping it. You get it back in 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Okay. For the Boss Man, it would have meant something. He wasn't too big of a draw. He wasn't an Undertaker. He wasn't a guy that you could say he's too big for a title or he doesn't need a title. He could have benefited from a title. The next title I remember him winning, he won the UWF title as Big Bo Rogers. And then the next thing I know, he won the WWF or WWE at that point tag team title with Ken Shamrock. There's about 20 years or 15 years in between. He could have used this win. However, it wasn't bad. And for a bigger man, especially a babyface, to go under, even though, DQs, whatever, and the way they had the cornermen, I would have taken Andre out of it. Just let him go peacefully into the night. Just let him go peacefully into the night. That's how I feel about it. So
we're going to go through the next. We're going to go through the next two kind of quick because they just, end up not really being very significant. Earthquake and Jimmy Hart in his corner defeating Greg Valentine. I do love both of those guys, but it was just a match, about 3 minutes. And then the Legion of Doom and their either debut or maybe their only WrestleMania. Not 100% certain. Maybe we'll see going forward, but defeating Power and Glory in under a minute. So, what are you going to do?
Okay, first of all, that match, Earthquake, Hammer, who cares? That's a Saturday morning match. LOD and Power and Glory probably should have went 7 or 8, maybe even 10, because Herc was a legit strong guy. Roma had some talent. He shouldn't have been a horseman, but he had talent. And that tag team was pretty damn on fire. I'm not going to lie. Power and Glory was one of my favorite young upstart tag teams. And I wish they would have done a hell of a lot more with them. They say it was backstage politics. They say they ticked off the Road Warriors. I don't know. I wasn't there. But what I will tell you is that when those guys,
under a minute, they might have.
When those guys put on a match, it was a great damn match. And I think you could have pushed those guys to titles because, like you said, the Road Warriors were better chasing titles than they were holding them. They were the Undertaker of titles. Whereas Power and Glory could have been like the Midnight Express of the WWF at the time, WWE, whatever. And that would have been amazing. Because that could have been something. Slick as the manager, I would have put Heenan in that role. Heenan could have way done better for them.
Well, he just kind of feels more, like that kind of tag team who kind of have that air of a NWA-ish vibe with those guys.
I guess so. I'll give you that. If
Paul
Teddy
Roma
Long,
more so than Hercules, but still.
Yeah. Like I said, if Teddy Long was a free agent back then instead of being a ref at that time, he would have been the perfect guy to be, instead of Slick, I think Teddy Long could have been the guy to put them over. But there's so much more to do with them, and I hate to say it, that's probably one of the downfalls of that WrestleMania. As you were, sir.
Yep, coming up next was another good build, followed by a pretty poor match for the most part. Virgil turning on his once abuser and owner, boss. Well, however you want to look at that dynamic, I guess. Ted DiBiase by countout, of course, which is like, if you're going to try, I know Virgil was never going to go anywhere, and I don't think anybody thought he was. But if you want to try to have a moment for this guy on a story that you've built up to be the underdog guy, finally gets to give the comeuppance to this guy who's treated him poorly for all these years. Why does he win by a count out? I don't make it make sense, Vince.
It was trash.
It was. It was a bad match.
I'm at a loss for words, to be honest with you, because didn't they have the whole Roddy Piper vignettes building up to it?
Piper came out with them. That was when Piper was wearing that weird kind of button-up shirt for a while. Strange looking. I believe his leg was injured at the time. He was on crutches, but yeah, no, Virgil was just bad. Sorry, he was not a great wrestler.
He never was, even
It
in
never
Memphis.
was.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna give something like this build up time, this is the second, almost second from the last match here. Why is it a count out win? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, after the Road Warriors go on, you got to cool off.
Yeah.
So I think
Well,
that's what it
the
was.
next match is, I think.
So hit me, boss. Hit me.
The Mountie, who should never be away from a tag team. He's great in a tag team. I forget his proper name at this time, but
Jacques Rougeau.
Jacques Rougeau was awesome with the Rougeaus, defeating Tito Santana in a little over a minute. Mountie should have, never worked. Never should have really been a singles guy. Great tag team wrestler, though. That's all I really got for that match.
That's probably, if this was a boat, that was the hole. That's the hole in the boat. That's it. Like, you could not put a cork in that match to save it. It shouldn't have existed. It's another Saturday morning match.
Yeah,
I mean, there's too many Saturday morning matches.
That's true. And at this time, I think there was a lot of that going on. And for that to be on your WrestleMania, I know that even still, by the time 7 is happening, you're still kind of building it up, even though you've had these big events already. But obviously right now is really starting to downturn in the early 90s.
Yes.
So I guess I understand it. But we are coming to the main event. We keep saying this right now, another really good build that leads to a fairly it wasn't the worst match of all time, but it wasn't great. And we've talked about it, at the beginning of this one. Sergeant Slaughter was a great hand for years. I think by the time he got to WWF, obviously not in the ring at that level anymore, but a good character. Great character for, Saturday morning. He was in the cartoons that they had, children's TV, action figures, things like that. And I love the idea of turning Sergeant Slaughter into a heel. And he did a great job, I thought, of being that bad guy, turning on America at a time where we were at war with Iraq.
Yeah.
That it worked. And then the match happened and
it didn't work.
Yeah. Great build, though.
It was all build, no delivery.
Yeah.
It's a friend of mine once said, "Do you ever get a box this big for a present, and then the gift is there?"
Yeah.
It's like, well, is it a diamond? Is it a ring? No. It's just like one of those wishing trolls
it's WrestleMania
or something.
7.
Yeah. So,
which again, the main WrestleMania moment for this was Warrior Savage. I don't think there's
that basically was the story versus this was sucking the air out of the room.
Yeah.
You could have put Road Warriors and Power and Glory at the end, 8 minutes, and sent the crowd home happy. You just have to have a story behind it, but it was just these guys are decimators. Well, if you did something better with that, you could have had a lot more story for that and sent the crowd home happy instead of, that's all we got. So that's at WrestleMania. Going forward, where are we?
We are in Indianapolis, Indiana in 1992 at the old RCA Dome, or Hoosier Dome at the time. I remember it as the RCA Dome mostly, but showing my age there. We're finally starting to get some slightly more consistent lengths of the matches, fewer matches, looking at this card just initially, after a dark match that went 10 minutes, which is always a little, dark matches probably don't need to go more than a couple, let's be honest. But first televised match, Shawn Michaels now on his own, away from Party Marty, with Sherry in his corner, which was a good pairing, especially early on in his singles run, defeating Tito Santana in a 10.5-minute match. Good match.
Solid.
You're really seeing where Shawn is starting to move up at this point. And a fun opening match, credit to all these last several years. Vince sees a match like this with two guys that are capable and put them on for more than 10 minutes to go out there and get the crowd up and put on a good match.
Now, while I can argue this is a Saturday morning match, this is a workers' match.
Yeah.
This is two guys who are working. They're actually working their tails off and telling a story. This is a storyteller workers match. That's the best way I could put it. Tito, one of the best of all time, telling a story. And Sean finally coming into his own as a singles. Yeah, this is a workers match in my opinion.
Yeah, and a fun match, I think. Good opener. Next up, Undertaker, continuing the streak with number 2, defeating Jake Roberts. Worked fine. Don't really have too much else to say other than it was a good Undertaker match for the time. It was fine. Jake was getting on a bit here. I think he would leave for a brief stint in WCW, not terribly long after this.
Well, Jake's demons were getting the best of him at this point, but it wasn't even supposed to be his storyline. It was supposed to be partly either Macho Man or, Macho Man's floating with the retirement thing, and Ultimate Warrior.
We'll see later that didn't last.
It was supposed to be Ultimate Warrior's story. And then they floated the idea, I hear, that it was also supposed to be Charles Wright Papa Shango's. So who knows what it was supposed to be at the time. But the point is, Jake was the one who anybody could work a story with. They said back in the day, and I don't know if this is true or not, but if you felt your character was spinning wheels, Vince would say, time for you to go work an angle with Jake. And Jake would just call it and create the angle. I don't know. But if that's true, he's the one who salvaged a storyline between Warrior and Undertaker. So many props.
Yeah. Next up is definitely one of the, I would have to say, top 10 WrestleMania matches as far as a match goes of all time. Singles match, Bret Hart defeating the champ, Roddy Piper, for the IC belt in a great match with this is a match that if you're trying to explain to somebody who might not be as into wrestling how match psychology works, you show them a match like this. Because you got two very capable wrestlers, obviously. I mean, Piper, not quite at the technical level that Bret Hart ever was. Not really close, I guess, to be honest with you. No hate on Piper, but he really upped his game in this one. And this was a passing of the torch moment. Again, we see Shawn Michaels start to, make his way up into the singles ranks. Bret had already started doing so. This is the first Intercontinental Championship he won. And it's a fantastic match. You see the change that Piper goes through from the build, from going up, at the beginning of the match, realizing he's got to try these tactics to try to get away from this guy, this young kid who's really going to out wrestle him. He's not going to out wrestle him at all. And by the end, it's a whole villain arc, rise and then fall again. He's got the bell. He's going to, the referee's out of the picture. He's going to whack Hart with the bell. And he just kind of looks around the Hoosier Dome and all these people.
I know. that drama.
Booing. Right? It's great. I mean, it's awesome drama. And again, I would show this match to somebody who I was trying to give a good example of how you're telling a story in a match, because it's perfectly done. I mean, this I don't know what Meltzer, Gibbs, who cares, but this is definitely a 5-star match, in my opinion.
It was a great match, and I think the psychology in the ring work and the storytelling, it wasn't the ring work as much as the storytelling and psychology, because Piper definitely could not keep up.
But it works that way. It was built brawling into the match that way.
Exactly. And when it ended, there was no heel.
No, he puts the belt on Bret, and
it was a great ending.
Yeah, I definitely a top 10 all-time WrestleMania match.
That I would say this one stole the show pretty much, as far as a complete story, a complete everything that you want in a wrestling match, everything you want in a WrestleMania match that actually makes sense. You had a build, a crescendo, an end.
Yeah.
and we went home happy with it on both sides.
It's storytelling, folks.
We were happy on both sides. That's something that never happens anymore.
Yeah. So moving on, great match there to a little bit of a bring it down with a just fine 8-man tag team match. Big Boss Man, Virgil, Sergeant Slaughter, and Jim Duggan defeating the Mountie and the Nasty Boys and Repo Man. Repo Man.
Okay, if Barry Darsow wasn't in this match, it's mind-numbing. It's just a payday match. This is definitely
coming off of the last match. It's fine. Cigarette after the
yeah,
Bret Hart and Piper.
This is one of those. Are there any French fries left in the kitchen, honey? that's what it is.
But then moving on after that, we have probably if this is the problem that they have sometimes at WWF without having these big stars, Hogan, Cena, guys like that, Rock, to really put on, you end up having the WWF Championship match several matches before the main event in a good match between Randy Savage and Ric Flair, the champion at the time, putting Randy over. Ric Flair obviously did not have a long run, but coming off a great Royal Rumble, maybe one of the best top 3 Royal Rumbles.
Definitely.
Yeah. In a pretty good match. We would have seen better from both Flair and Savage, but still a good match.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it. Of course, everybody knew that Savage was going to win. They wanted to send
retired Savage.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I just wish my dad would just go back into the military right now and, do his thing in the army. No, Dad, you don't, because you're almost 80. It's silliness when you look at storyline incongruity like that. But what I will say about the match was it was a good match. It was a solid match. And honestly, if you this is another one, dial the clock back 3 to 4 years, both in their greatest shape and their greatest performances.
They're both floating around from just a few years earlier, that same orbit with Ricky Steamboat.
Yeah.
Flair having the series of great matches with him in 89.
89, yeah.
And Savage just a couple years before that.
Or 87, yeah.
Yeah, program, and then a great match at that WrestleMania, another top 10. Yeah, it was a fun match. But it's just so weird to see, I'm looking at 3 more matches in between this and the main event. And there's some good matches on this show. This is maybe the best all-around show so far in the WrestleMania kind of canon. Just top to bottom, everything. There are moments from earlier ones that we can pick out, but as far as like straight up and down the card, might be the most well-rounded. Okay. And it's just weird that you can almost see them. They do it again, later on, where you have a guy like CM Punk who should have been in the main event with a WWE Championship going on so early compared to, let's have Cena and The Rock again.
No, I get you right there. So what is our next match, my friend?
Sorry, say that again.
I said, so what is our next match, my friend?
Not bad. Next match, Tatanka Buffalo defeating Rick Martel. I got nothing. Do you?
Once again, a Saturday morning match.
Buffalo.
Yeah, that's basically just a match you put on and our main event today at the 1 hour WWF Spotlight is Tatanka versus the model Rick Martel.
And again, you've got Tatanka, who had was super popular. He was super over. He had a big win streak. If only he was a good worker. They probably could have done more with him over the years.
And he was rehired in the 2000s. What the father? Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, after that tag team title match, a fun match. Again, I think it's still, keeping up. This is a pretty solid card overall. Natural disasters, Earthquake and Typhoon, defeating Money Inc., Ted DiBiase, and IRS, who I always liked watching together. Obviously, we know Mike Rotunda, very underrated because of how sort of more well-known his IRS character was than, anything he did back in the day with the not Letterman Club. What am I saying? This Varsity Club.
Varsity Club and what do you call it? Not the Dream Team, but it was him and Barry Windham, like Team USA.
Yeah, great worker. Mike Rotunda was a really, really talented wrestler and a good worker.
Oh, great!
Not the greatest talker, but
Fun fact: the fact that Hulk Hogan's theme song was originally written for Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham.
Yeah.
And then because Hogan used to come out to Eye of the Tiger, then when Barry Windham left, they replaced him with Spivey. Didn't work out, split, both left territories, and Hogan got I'm a Real American.
All right.
U.S. Express. That was the team. U.S. Express.
There you go.
Son of a fish. Okay, keep going.
The WrestleMania debut of Owen Hart, defeating Skinner in about 1:30. Skinner!
Steve Kern.
Yeah. Another guy who just wasn't going to make it in WWF more than this sort of level, who was still a talented guy in the past for some other companies, but, territory guy, if you will.
I think had he come in during his run as like one half of the Fantastics, I believe he was part of the Fantastics, when he was still jacked, like Stan Lane was, I think he could have been an Intercontinental Champion. Had they built something around him, I think they could have put the Mr. Perfect gimmick on him for a little bit, a lot shorter.
The Fabulous Ones,
that's it. Sorry, Fantastic.
But still,
Fantastics, Fabulous. There's another F, not the Freebirds, but somebody else came out at the same time. I get them a little blended. Hey, I'm 50. That happens. But when it comes down to it, he was jacked. He was in great shape, and he could move. Not as great as Stan Lane. But I do think that, or if you put him in a tag team with somebody, I could see like Kern and Tito doing like a good tag team, kind of like Strike Force, something like that.
And that leads us to our main event, Hulk Hogan defeating Sid Justice, later to be known as Psycho Sid, by DQ. Again, this is one where the main event really kind of lets down the rest of the card. And I like Sid a lot. I'm glad that he got in the Hall of Fame, a couple months ago. At this point, not a horrible match by any means. It wasn't god awful, but it wasn't a good match particularly. Let's be honest. But Sid would have better days in WWF to come, I believe. But even still, always liked Sid.
This was another hype, and the ending. It's kind of said like, come on.
Well, probably Hogan at this point really was probably checked out.
Hogan was checked out, and Sid's ego. Sid was, I'm leaving. I don't care. Softball season.
Yeah.
So
this might have been a little bit before that. I'm not sure, because I think right about this time, Sid probably should have been the guy to go over and really should have gotten that push. I don't know if it was a politics thing with Hogan.
I agree, but
often but Sid really kind of should have been getting up there as like a guy. I mean, he would be champion eventually.
There's at least three different stories of way it should have ended by different people who claim to be in the know, especially like big time podcasters who are actually in the business. So I've heard 3 different endings, which it's supposed to be. Sid goes over, it goes to a draw, interference, everything, and it just schmozzed. So who knows? It's one of those where the crowd didn't go home happy. I think the crowd just went home, kind of scratched their head going, oh, I paid this much for the main event.
Yeah.
Where's the event? So that's my thought on that one.
Well, we're going to move on. This might be the one to end the night on. I don't know. We'll I guess look at that in a second. But the infamous WrestleMania 9, coming to you from Paradise, Nevada. If you've ever been out there, it's not technically Las Vegas, but Caesar's parking lot.
Where do I work?
You work at Steak, my man.
At Caesar's.
What is it? It is Caesars again, isn't it? Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
it was Horseshoe for a while. Anyway, Caesar's Palace. This is classic WWF, especially at this time. You've got a great theme. You've got this. I mean, it looks awesome. Maybe going a little bit overboard with everybody wearing togas and whatnot, but it looks awesome. I remember the first time watching this, we got it on videotape, and I thought this was going to be the greatest like WrestleMania I've ever seen. It's a big Roman theme. It's in Las Vegas. It had all this stuff kind of going for it. Bret Hart and Yokozuna in the main event. Yeah. We'll get to that. Trust me. But then I think even as a kid, there were things that I liked about it more so than I go back and look now and just think, wow. I mean, they had a couple there in a row that were pretty good, but oof. This is not a good one, folks.
Unload.
Yeah. First match, Tatanka, Buffalo defeating Shawn Michaels with the period of time where he had Luna Vachon, another underrated talent in the business for the IC belt. So Tatanka gets his first belt in the company. And Shawn Michaels kind of drags him along to a pretty decent match, at this point and going forward. Michaels, with all of his problems going on in his head, he could probably have wrestled a broomstick and put on a pretty good match. So credit to Michaels for that.
All I gotta say, the match was a straight 5, and Tatanka was doing what he was doing. I think maybe he had some issues at the time. Don't know. But obviously Michaels was being early Michaels and having a lot of fun. Still, it was a straight 5 match. Good opener. Good. I actually would put this in the middle. A 5 goes in the middle. The 10 is supposed to be at the end. So
yeah. I probably would have put this in the opening match because it ended up being maybe the most sort of competent, fun match of the night. We'll see when we get down there. But Steiner Brothers defeating the Head Shrinkers. Good fun tag team match.
I think
things start to go downhill after this.
Yeah, well, I think that they could have worked a way better match with that. I think that do you have the time on that one?
14:22.
Yeah, if we kept it to about 10.
Yeah. Tatanka and Shawn almost went 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's not needed. That should have went like 8. But yeah, it was Steiner's and everything else. Steiner's Head Shrinkers, honestly, in a 10-minute match, I think they could have, honestly, maybe an 8-minute match, if they played it right, it could have been more explosive and a lot more fun and hyped the crowd and built the crowd up a little bit more for what we're going into.
I'll tell you who an 8-minute match did not help out was the next match, Doink versus Crush. Kona Crush. Oh, folks. It's not a good match. And then at the end,
that face again.
In fact, the best part about this match, in my opinion, was afterwards, where you get the 2 Doinks doing the mirror spot with each other. But that's all I can say.
Honestly, everybody talks about like how great Doink was. I never saw the hype. I really never saw the hype.
I'm not saying he was great either. But, some of that stuff was a little fun.
I just got one of these
better
things,
when he was an evil clown.
Either or either. I don't remember seeing a whole lot of him on television. Now, maybe it was the Cleveland market and they didn't want him on TV, so they spliced different things. But
was that Bozo's hometown? Is that why?
No, that's Chicago. That's Chicago. Okay. But I knew like originally it was Matt Bourne, and I saw Matt Bourne wrestle in USWA and Global and AWA, and he was a brawler. Yeah. So I saw none of that in Doink, and I just never saw. I'm going to have to rewatch and see what people really wanted or liked in Doink. That's all I think.
There was a period of time where Doink was actually, they were trying to put a little bit of that evil clown thing on him, and it worked much better than when he was going around trying to be and kind of being a bit of a baby face for the kids and all that.
Either or, I have to revisit it and see, because maybe I just didn't have enough exposure to see. I think honestly, what they were trying to do with Doink is what ended up happening with Mankind, but that's another discussion.
Yeah. Next up, the WrestleMania debut of Razor Ramon,
Oh,
defeating Bob Backlund in under 4 minutes. Not the best match. It is kind of what it is. Backlund was really getting up there at this point, about to have his final run, I think, though, as the champion, which he did, I think, exceptionally well with. That's for another time to really discuss, I think. But you get Scott Hall, Razor Ramon in there. A really, really good worker and a very good mind for wrestling itself. Came up with a few gimmicks on him, himself. Maybe watched too many movies, because I think it was Razor Ramon was Scarface. He's credited for giving Sting the idea, probably after watching The Crow. you know, but if Scott Hall had not had his demons, I probably want him doing some booking for me, because I think he had a really good mind, for the business and for wrestling.
He definitely had a great mind for the wrestling business, and obviously, like all the ideas that you're talking about, he definitely contributed to. Everybody said it. There's been way too many people there has been way too many people who have contributed to his legacy and talking about like the Crow gimmick and everything else and Scarface and blah, 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 blah. And there's more things behind that. I honestly think, and a lot of people say the NWO was a lot of his idea, even though Bischoff was the one who approached. It was Scott Hall who said, "Okay, let's do it this way." Instead,
I think it was him with the Dallas Page thing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was a lot of him. The Page coming and sort of putting the T-shirt on, and then
taking it off. Yeah,
grabbing him after shaking his hand, diamond cuttering him, which. Scott Hall, again, great worker. He had the best stunner cell. If I, straight up and over, like almost on top of his head for a second, like
that was definitely an intoxicated oversell. A little.
It was,
bit,
but it was great. But it was definitely an oversell, though. But it worked.
What I will say is that Scott Hall deserves a special place as far as who he was. He should have been a world champ. Going over Bob Backlund, I think, is really awesome. But my problem with that is the fact that they're going to put the belt back on Bob Backlund. They would never put the belt on Scott Hall, no matter where he was, because they always said he was a tandem to go with Kevin Nash. And Kevin Nash was like an issue because the only person he wanted to put over was Scott Hall.
Well, I don't know. That might be a discussion. I think Nash, and I definitely have, he in a lot of ways was kind of the opposite of Hall when it comes to a lot of wrestling things. But I think he did a little bit more. I think he was a little more generous than people give him credit for. Hall was very generous. Hall didn't mind putting anybody over. I don't think he ever had any issue with anything like that. And more power to him for that sort of thing, not being the politicker. I mean, I guess the Click kind of always were a little bit, but I think Hall always came off in interviews and stuff that I see people talking about where he was more the guy that would mess with other dudes and F with them, almost more in a fun way than some of these other guys that were in the Click who were really kind of pushing their, influence and their politics. Yeah. So I always liked Scott Hall. He's one of my favorites. The first time he came on to WCW, before the NWO did the invasion, I was like glued to the TV. And then Nash showed up a couple of weeks later, and at that age, I was like 9 years old or something. I was like genuinely, yes, and I was like genuinely kind of scared for a little bit there. I was like, oh, this guy's huge, and he's starting to threaten, Tony Schiavone and Bischoff and those guys, Bobby Heenan. But yeah, the debut of Razor Ramon there, he would go on and have a really pretty good WWF run for the next couple of years. And then, sadly, after a while, had his demons kind of catch up to him. So I think we didn't quite see the best that Razor could give us. But
no. But
next up is a tag match for the tag team champion. Money Inc. again, Ted DiBiase and IRS defeating the Megamaniacs, brother Hogan and Brutus Beefcake, which... Help me, Jesus. Please help me, Jesus.
This is probably
18 and a half minutes this match went.
Why?
You got me.
ladies and gentlemen, if you watch this match, I want you to do a favor for me. Bleach your soul of ever seeing it and forget it exists, okay? And the fact is, there's two talented wrestlers in that ring. There's a third who's past his prime, Macho, and a guy who doesn't care because he gets paid in Hogan. And honestly, at this point, DiBiase was about to hang it up anyway because he was getting to that point. This match should have been 5 minutes. 5 minutes, DQ, schmaz it, get it out. That's what I thought about that.
Next up, another match that was maybe slightly too long. Lex Luger defeating Mr. Perfect. Obviously, we know who's doing the work here. Even though Lex, I think, gets a little too much hate for his in-ring ability. Just my opinion.
This is my favorite part of this whole match, is that they had hyped up Lex Luger coming in so much. And so now he's going to fight Mr. Perfect. And when Luger comes through the ropes, or excuse me, he comes through the curtain. Okay? He comes through the curtain, and he's with Heenan. And if you watch it anytime, this guy right in his face going, it's hilarious. And so I pointed out to my younger brother, Tim, like years later. And so we found it on YouTube, rewatched it, sure enough. It just makes me laugh. It's just like, this guy took it so seriously. He really wanted to give Luger the finger. And looking back, like Luger, he had the look. He definitely did not have the in-ring. He was serviceable. Honestly, in the early 80s, like pre-84, he probably could have been a big thing. I mean, he could
put him with
Hogan.
Somebody who really knew what they were doing in there. I think he was pretty serviceable, like you said.
Yeah. Like you put him in with Perfect. I mean, well, Perfect can do anything. It's just like Bret Hart could do anything.
Except win at WrestleMania, apparently.
No joke. So it just comes down to me for Luger, like, it was a really sad debut.
Yeah. But after that, go ahead. Sorry.
He'll always have this.
Yeah. But talking about sad, the last technically 3 matches.
Okay.
This pay-per-view just sort of topples to the ground from here on out. You've got The Undertaker defeating Jorge Giant Gonzalez, Harvey Whippleman in his corner. A match that shockingly went 7.5 minutes if you actually sit there and watch it. I'm sure Jorge Gonzalez was a lovely guy. I think I've heard from other people in interviews and whatnot that he was. He was a very nice dude, probably worked, hard as he could. But he's just so big and so clumsy and just not it's like every move he makes is like the opposite of what a worker should be doing. The greatest things being the selling. Oh, yeah. I mean, literal third grader trying to like put on a performance might have been able to do a better job at selling than Jorge Gonzalez. And again, God rest his soul. I'm sure he was a lovely guy, but he's only there because he's 7'4".
It's a top 10 worst match of all time. It is what it is. The guy should have never been a wrestler. He was supposed to be a basketball player. We all know. Same thing as Kevin Nash, broken ankle. Because Ted Turner liked to sign 7-footers who break ankles, and all of a sudden it becomes okay. Let's put tights on him, make him a wrestler. All of a sudden now he goes to the other company where they're going to strap a rocket to him. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In his case, it just never did. And
maybe the best thing about this match was somebody was a gorilla pointing out, that's ether. It smells like ether.
Ether, yeah, because, we all know that smell. What? Come on. We all know that smell. So, isn't that, correct me if I'm wrong, The Undertaker's only win by disqualification in a WrestleMania?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that's worst match of the card. Worst match of the card. The Undertaker, best big man of all time, facing a man way bigger than him who couldn't carry water in a bucket. I mean,
it might be the worst match on the card if we don't talk about the one here after the real main event for the WWF Championship, Yokozuna defeating Bret Hart in a serviceable match. But it's what happened after that. A while after losing to Money Inc., IRS, and Ted DiBiase, inexplicably, Hogan comes to. I don't think they had anything to do with each other really at this point. Him and Bret Hart.
Nope.
No, they never fought, as far as I know. They never had a match. Very checkered as far as their actual history personally together, but he comes out, and I know what they're trying to do to sell the Yokozuna, the power of Yokozuna here and whatnot, but God bless Bret Hart for even being able to do this, be the professional. Oh, go get him for me, brother. He's all yours. And you watch it now, and it's like you're pulling your own teeth out. It's just, what are you doing?
See, I like the way you say that. I like the way you say that because I love the movie Flash Gordon from 1980.
Yeah.
But if you watch the movie, the whole thing is a forced plot from the beginning to the end. You're like, let's just keep putting our foot on the gas pedal and forcing this. That's the same thing with this match. However, I don't like this match like I like Flash Gordon. None of these people are Sam Jones. And there's no Timothy Dalton to save the day, okay? So, with that being said, it was a decent match because at this point Yoko's weight was getting out of control, but for his athleticism, for him to be 600 pounds, holy biscuits.
He was still legit at this point, I think, like as far as a attraction and what they were doing with him in the WWF.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, again, it's one of those things that if you even take out the whole Hogan thing, which the shine was definitely lost on Hogan at this point in WWF, he was about to leave. But you're going to put Yokozuna over Bret Hart, who's been your champion. Why are we having Hogan come out and take it off of him in like 20 seconds? I don't get it. I just, these beggars belief, these things that you look back on, almost 40 years now at this point and go, what are they thinking?
I am a real American.
And you have to sit there and watch him do the thing.
Like, no, man.
I think the one thing that I hated, if I remember, he's got that black eye and he's holding the belt up and he's the, brother. And I'm like,
we both hated the same thing. And everybody says the urban legend is that Savage gave that to him backstage. But he claims I buy. Well, they hated each other.
It sounds more plausible than getting hit by a jet ski, brother.
Well, if you got hit by a jet ski, wouldn't you pull a beefcake and be out for over a year?
I know, right? At least that's what I'm saying. Beaver's had the better injury story. He was a wind sail or whatever they call it, right?
Parasailing.
Parasailing, yeah.
It was, yeah. Because he was on the big push to defeat Honky Tonk, which, whatever. The point is, man.
The point is that this WrestleMania ended like
peacefully.
That's one peaceably, I don't know, something like that. But
let's get the dirt and shovel it on there.
God, I mean, thank God Bret Hart survived it. I mean, this was not a burial in the traditional sense, but I mean, you're just begging Hogan to take every little bit of everything that both Bret Hart and Yokozuna could give him. And even Fuji, because if I remember right, didn't Hogan like throw some salt in Fuji's eyes or whatever, or something like that?
Yeah.
And it's just like, and maybe even Vince started realizing at this point that he doesn't need Hogan around anymore. This might have been a mistake. He'll never admit it probably, but going back and looking at it, because this is just totally like, Hogan, go away. Like, we don't want you here. This is maybe the worst thing they could have done at this time. And they did it.
Sounds good. So do we want to call it a day?
Hogan, go away. We don't need you.
Oh. Bring him. Put it back up with a black eye. That'd be hilarious.
Give me a marker real quick. Yeah.
Get Moose on there. So what do you say? You call it a day on this one?
I think we're gonna have to get through these as fast as we can going forward. WrestleMania 10 is actually a fun one, so I think it'd be good to maybe start with that one.
Okay.
we get a rematch between Hart and Yokozuna, which is a much better match. So I think it'd be a good place to kind of come back to. Of course, now next year you get the Heavenly Bodies opening the show. So,
well, some very interesting stuff because we can talk about the rebirth of the Indies with Smoky Mountain and ECW and where things were going with that, and new development of talent that was underground. Some of them being called up to WCW, WWF. We're going to start the Monday Night War. So yeah, this is going to be a good jump start. So, let's go forward towards sign off. So let's have that moment.
Wrestle Magic.
Well, as far as watching stuff lately, I don't really have anything new, unfortunately, from the last time. We're still blasting through Taskmaster, so I still highly recommend that on YouTube. Go and watch it. There's plenty of seasons to binge on. Fun British show, and once again, eating some tortellini soup throughout this one. So you can't find me on social media, so don't try, please.
Well played. Well, just speaking out to all of our other co-hosts and co-authors, Scully, Maverick, like, you guys, amazing. Everything's going well. Everything's awesome. You guys are still like beating the sheets, breaking it down. We're all getting it going. We're all producing content, which is great. I'm loving it. I'm loving all of you. I think that we're just having a great time, and that's what we want to do, and just keep producing for everybody. So I was thinking about what we call our followers. So I'm the gardener, and your last name is Bush. So I think anybody who likes our editorials should be called the Seedlings.
The Seedlings.
The Seedlings. It makes sense. You're Bush.
We'll workshop that one. We'll talk about that.
Well, I also thought about, and I'm just throwing this out there, folks, so nothing's concrete by far without consulting everybody else, but the Wrestle Magicians? Just goofball ideas. I mean, Scully, I would figure like he's the king, so he has his followers, and Mav,
the King's Court.
Yeah. So just ideas, Mav, being maintenance Mav, I'm sure he has something to do with, maintenance and everything else. And I don't want to speak for anybody, just ideas, which if anybody has ideas, go ahead and let us know, because you can always find me at 144captain on X. And I'm going to throw a shout out today. I was going to do a book, but I'm not going to do a book right now. I was thinking about a comic book series, and I'm going to say Hellblazer. Read Hellblazer. It's a story of John Constantine. It's amazing. It goes very chronologically out of order. You can find number one, and everything else is like chaos. And it is the same thing as John Constantine, the movie, except the movie doesn't do it any justice. It's very, very good. And I've been thinking about it because it's sitting right here next to me, and it's very, very good. And if you want to read any of those, Sean, let me know, and I'll loan them to you. But
my cousin, I was never big into comics, but my cousin was, and he had, I think, either that whole series, or I don't know how that one worked exactly, but he had some of those. Because I'd never seen him anywhere else. That was like the only exposure I ever had to that.
So let me ask you something real quick, Mr. Sean Bush, is what do you think of when you hear two A's?
Well, double A, Arn Anderson, of course.
Is that always double A? Just something to think about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play you out. Jimmy, hit it.
Wrestle Magic.